You're listening to The Bloodshed Baddies.
Hi, I'm Lex,
And I'm Sam.
and we are the Bloodshed Baddies.
Ooh. So, this is our first time doing a podcast.
We are sisters. We are 2.5 years apart, and we are also multiple states apart. I am in Tennessee.
And I'm a Florida girly. And we try to stay connected all the time because I would say we're super close, even though we live super far.
One of the ways we do this is through Taylor Swift, our doggies. And we also started a book club. We've added 2 people to our book club after the first year of doing it, just us two.
It's very elite. We choose a book a month, but then we also talk about true crime a lot and listen to a lot of podcasts. So one day we were like, what the heck? Let's do it. So this is our
Yeah.
attempt.
Sam is going to start with our case today.
I'm very nervous, but I guess want to just get right into it.
Let's do it.
All right. So this story is extremely tragic on all accounts. And it's the very first case I'm covering. And it's the case of Tatiana Tarasoff. For me, I'm pretty sure I've heard of this before, but I'm just curious, have you ever heard of this one?
The name sounds familiar, but I don't know it like off the top of my head. So I'm excited to see if I do know the story or not.
I know I have like a terrible memory, but the crazy details, all of it is insane. And also, real quick before I begin, I just wanted to say I got a lot of this information online that we'll attempt to link in the show notes, but also from a book called Bad Karma, which is a true story of obsession and murder by Deborah Blum, I think. Her book used court transcripts, police reports, newspaper accounts, letters, and she interviewed a lot of people directly involved. But she also admits to like dramatizing it. It's kind of more of like a fiction book, how it's written, which is really interesting. It's really good if you should read it. But with my online research, I tried making sure timelines were correct, but it does get a little bit messy. So I just wanted to warn you.
Okay.
All right, let's get started. Tatiana Tarasoff, she went by Tanya, and she was the daughter of 2 Russian immigrants. Her parents met in Manchuria, China, and their marriage was really quick. On their first date, apparently her dad took her mom for a ride on like a cobblestone street and he would not slow down. They ended up crashing and she ended up getting hurt. And then,
What?
yes. And then while she was recovering, he proposed. And that's how I got married.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. After World War II, her parents were living in Shanghai, and her dad told his wife at the time, or his wife, that he wanted to move to America, and it was easier for them to go to Brazil first. So they went there first. And after 2 years of living there, their first daughter, Tatiana, who goes by Tanya, was born on January 22nd, 1949. 15 months later, her brother Alex was born, and then they ended up having another child, Helen, but that was a lot later on because she was around 5 during like all the crazy stuff we're about to talk about.
15 months apart. Is that technically Irish twins or is that 14 months? I don't know what that is.
I think
But
it's a
that's really
year,
close.
but super close. Yes. So super close in age. Unfortunately, I don't think they were super close, but we'll get into that. In 1963, their visas were approved and the family moved to Berkeley, California. And at this point, Tanya is 14 years old. Her dad is super strict and unfortunately a bad alcoholic. And her mom would probably be considered an enabler. She stayed in her lane and basically authorized the kids to do so also. Her dad sounds like not a great person. He was overprotective in not a good way. So like any teenager with super strict parents, she struggled. She lied sometimes, of course. One of the sources I read said that she was forbidden to wear makeup. So she would wait until she was out of the house to put mascara on. And this reminds me of going to the mall with you and Gina with Dal when she drove us. We like
We
changed our
would,
clothes.
yeah, we
Sorry.
would put our sexy clothes on underneath sweatpants and a hoodie and go to the mall and then take off the sweatpants and a hoodie at the mall.
And
So we
like
could
think we
look
were going to
good.
meet people. But on a sadder note, her dad made her feel extremely insecure and not good enough. He would accuse her of like going after anything with pants. He would act possessive, even if she was just going out with girlfriends. He'd even spy or stalk her on certain occasions.
Oh my
What?
God.
Yes. So, like, very toxic. She would often have to wait until he was passed out drunk to even leave her house. She actually really wanted to go to Berkeley, but he made her feel like she wouldn't be able to make it, wouldn't be smart enough. So she was enrolled in Merritt Junior College. And at the time of all this, she was secretly planning to transfer to Berkeley, which of course stressed her out because she knew this would just piss her dad off. Not only did all of this make her insecure, but she felt insecure with her body. And her first sexual experience was not great. She had a crush on a guy for 2 years. And then after they had their experience, the jerk didn't even call her back. So she was known to be very insecure. And I think this plays like a huge role in how all of this acted out.
Okay. Yeah.
Now she's 18. She's allowed to go to folk dances at the International House at UC Berkeley, where in some sources it said she tutored Portuguese students in her spare time, which is awesome. And in the fall of 1968, at one of the folk dances, she met 22-year-old Proshinjit Potter.
How old was she at this point?
She is 18, so
Okay.
not too far apart. Potter was, and I'm going to call him by his last name for now on, but he was actually born in India and he moved to America to get his master's degree in naval architecture.
Oh,
I know, but not good. He's not good. But this was actually quite incredible because he was born into the Dalit or the Untouchables. And I know I'm not familiar with Hindu caste systems. Are you?
not really, no. I know a little bit from Indian Matchmaker.
Oh my God. You're right. I totally forgot about that. So basically, this is the bottom of the barrel. So far down that the Hindu caste system is made up of 4 castes, and this is under that caste system. So they're not even like considered a caste. He actually technically isn't even in the caste system. He had no running water, no toilet, no electricity. His father was actually said to be one of the first untouchables to learn how to read, but because he was part of this untouchable group, they didn't even want him to go to school. So Potter had to sit outside and learn through a window for 6 years, which is insane.
This
His dad,
stinks that he turns out to be not a good guy
I know,
because that's incredible that you live that life and are able to go get a master's degree.
it's absolutely incredible, which is, I hate saying that because you're right. He's not a good guy at all. After sitting outside for 6 years, at 16, his dad sent, oh, I'm sorry, at 9, his dad sends him with relatives to attend high school. So he's attending high school at that age. And then at 16, he takes a test to get into the Indian Institute of Technology. And then in September of 1967, he was able to leave home and join the graduate program at UC Berkeley. Again, just wild that he was able to even be there. According to another source, he was one of only a handful of people that were able to study in the US from this untouchable group. So the culture shock was real. He spent a
I
lot of time in
can't
his room.
even imagine.
No, not at all. So understandably, he spent a lot of time in his room. Culturally, he's used to arranged marriages, no sex before marriage. His mother actually wanted him to be married before he left, but he said no. So now he's in college in the late 60s, and I just can't imagine the pure shock. And again, this is something I think plays a huge role. And then it's also important to point out he's a foreigner in the late 60s. So I think at this time, people weren't super nice to him either.
Yeah.
So back to the fall of 1968, they meet at this folk dance when Tanya and her friend go. Apparently, they didn't talk at first, but he was memorized instantly. And a couple of weeks later, they actually danced. Apparently, he wasn't very good, but he shoots a shot, talks to her, gets her number, and basically asks, "Do you want to be my friend?" Which sounds sweet and innocent at first. From here, they become friendly. They see each other about once a week. One particularly lonely night when her friend wasn't with her, she went up to his room and they bonded about this ship model he was working on building for an experiment. He ends up asking her officially out, and she doesn't really want to go at first, but goes anyways. And he takes her to a movie.
This is such a girl thing to like not really want to go, but go anyways because you don't want to hurt his feelings.
A
And
hundred
this is
percent.
why you should just say no if you mean no.
Yes. And it's okay to quote unquote hurt somebody's feelings saying no. He takes her to the movie, and while at the movies, their arms brush up against each other. which is
Ooh.
yes. And he totally misreads the situation because he's not from America. So this is to me unmonumental. But to him, he's like, this is scandalous. And he reads so much into it. So much
Oh,
so that a few days after, he actually wrote home to his family and he tells his mom he doesn't want to get married until his studies are over and that he actually met a nice religious family with a daughter named Tanya that went to the university. So he's already lying a little bit, fabricating it in his head.
red flag.
Yes, 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 right away. It just seems like a lot really quickly. He's apparently telling some people that she's his girlfriend, and he goes out and purchases her a sari, which isn't just a gift in his mind or culture. It's basically an engagement gift.
That's a lot. That's a
I can just
lot
see
really fast.
the stress on your face. So he's committed and he wants to marry her almost instantly. On New Year's Eve, she's feeling particularly lonely, and they actually share a kiss with a lot of sources saying she's the one who initiated it. For him, again, this means they're going to be together. And he legit proposes to her a little while later. And she tells him that she doesn't want to, she doesn't know him enough and just wants to be friends.
Oh boy. Oh
So from
boy.
here, believe it or not, from here it gets messy. And this is where the timeline and the actual story kind of both just get really messy. They're on and off hanging out. He's on and off taking her on dates. I'm sure like her thinking is they're just friends, and he is thinking that it's more.
Well, her thinking is definitely that they're just friends because she told him that. But
1000% yes.
for some reason, some men, when they hear that, find it a challenge and that one day they won't be just friends.
Oh, yes. 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 And this, I don't know if this is where he's at just because of the cultural difference, but you're, yes. So around this time, as they're like on, off again, hanging out, she actually runs into a guy she met before and had a huge crush on. And they actually have this small fling. But again, guys are jerks, and he doesn't end up calling her back. She's devastated. And during all this mess, she actually ends up telling Potter that at some point when they start becoming a tad toxic. And he quote unquote forgives her because I don't really think that's his place.
He forgives her.
Yes.
They are not
Uh,
together. There's nothing to forgive.
correct. Then he ends up giving her the sorry, which she accepts because she doesn't know. And honestly, I wouldn't know either that that's something more meaningful.
No, I wouldn't know that either. And it's hard to not accept a gift that somebody is giving you, especially when it's like a cultural gift that you don't know a lot about.
Of course, and I'm sure she's trying to respect the culture. Like she worked at the I House with, once these folk dances with these international students. We're not all like adapt to every culture. So her acceptance of the sorry explodes the situation because he basically thinks that she is saying she's serious about him and she really just did it to be nice. I believe at this point,
I think we need to use our words instead of gifts.
yes, yes, because
In this
gifts,
situation and most situations.
I think in most situations, like gifts make things awkward because should I accept? Should I not? Is this being nice? Is this too far? Like you never know. And it's awkward as heck. But I believe at this time, Tanya is starting to distance herself from him. And she ends up standing him up several times, actually. And this sets him into a spiral of wanting to hurt her. So the situation has completely escalated. Because of all this, he grows depressed. He doesn't leave his room. He starts neglecting his appearance and his studies, which we know that he's this great student. He isn't eating at all.
I also feel like this is just a list of red flag after red flag after red flag.
100%. At some point during all of this mess, she actually introduces him to her brother at allegedly the gas station where he works at. And they kind of hit it off because, of course, he wants to make a good impression. They start talking about cars. Also, around this time, he's calling Tanya's home and like getting mad when she's not talking, and allegedly like tells the mom that he wants to talk to her dad and tell the dad how disrespectful she's being.
What?
Yeah. And this is a 22-year-old man and she's 18.
I
He,
could never imagine if someone called one of my parents and was like, she's being disrespectful, you need to talk
E-
to her.
Even the people in our life that have been disrespectful, can you imagine calling their parents to tell
No.
in college? It's just so wild. So he even tells her at some point he's going to create a bomb and put it in her purse.
What?
Yes. Which she doesn't take seriously, but honestly, like, I don't know if I would either. Like,
Such a random thing to say.
yes. With his background of like naval architecture and stuff, I guess that's a little bit more scary. But can you imagine like putting a guy off and he's like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I would take that seriously, if I'm being honest.
Before I listened to true crime, I probably wouldn't. After listening to true crime and being really involved in this world, I definitely would take it seriously.
Very true. Very true.
But it's
So,
also like the 60s. So it's not
yes,
like people know these like red flags yet. There's no internet to pass around like, oh, these are red flags. This is what an abusive
yes,
relationship would look like.
yes. This is, I don't think they knew like, oh, people might actually build a bomb and put it in your purse. They're arguing a lot, but also she's lonely and insecure. So she's hanging out with him also, even though she doesn't really like him. And it's just this messy, toxic situation. So toxic that at some point, you're going to go wild for this. He actually starts secretly tape recording their conversations. And yes, I said secretly tape recording their conversations.
For what?
He plays them back and even edits them to say things like, I love you.
Oh, no, 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 no.
Yes. Once this is all over, I believe it was said that he had about 40 hours worth of tapes.
Okay, that's wild. Also, I'm kind of impressed because that's got to be way harder to edit things in the 60s.
He's a smart guy. That's why this is so sad. It's honestly tragic on every single account. He also kept a very detailed diary of their hangouts, and he showed her the diary one time, and she freaked out and told him to throw it away. And I don't think he did.
I understand how insecurities and being young and naive and not aware of what this means plays into this. But if I found this diary, I could never look at that person ever again.
I don't think so either. But like thinking of like high school insecure Sam, like I might hang out with him just to feel like, oh, at least somebody likes me. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, especially when it seems like every guy that she really liked kind of burned her very
Yes,
quickly.
which is so sad. He also is accusing her of offering herself for money to his friends, which obviously never happened. It's just like super
He
escalating.
he has mental illness for sure.
And that will come up. You're very right about that. He's super paranoid about the situation. She's also lonely, like I said. So she pushes away, but then ends up calling him back. And that also, like, not to give him any excuse at all, but gives him some hope in the situation. With a nudge from a professor and one of Potter's college friends who actually saw the tapes and was like, you need to get these away. They realize that he's in a really bad place and urge him to seek help, which, like, bravo to his friend who's like, please go get help,
Especially in the 60s. Like,
especially in the
we did
60s.
not talk about mental health in the 60s.
No. And I just think that, like, to say, like, hey, I think you're hurting and you need help is huge. It's a good friend. He initially resists the help and like saying he wants to go get help. He's like, no, I don't want to. And even says he's going to end up killing himself if he goes to get help.
Oh boy, that just means you need help even more, sir.
This brings us to around the summer of 1969. And Tanya has an opportunity to go visit her aunt in Brazil for the summer. She thinks a change of pace would be good for her. And I also think it might be an excuse for her to kind of get away from this toxic situation that she's in because Potter is starting to freak her out a little bit.
I 100% agree. I also am now just thinking about like in the beginning how strict her dad was. And I
Yes.
can totally relate more now to why she did seek out Potter because it's like if I don't have a lot of friends, this is the only way out for my dad. And now this aunt is an opportunity to escape her dad and now the situation that she has put herself in that she really rather wouldn't want to be in.
Exactly. I think you're 100% correct about that. Tanya tells Potter this that he is that she's going to go to Brazil, and he freaks out, of course, and actually tells that same college friend that he wants to physically hurt her and kill her if he needs to.
Oh no.
So his friend, again, like great friend, says, "You know what? I'm going to have to step in if that's what you're saying, or I'm going to go and tell somebody." And Potter says, "Then I'll just have to kill you too."
Kudos to this friend. I feel like I listen to so many true crime stories where someone tells their friend they're going to murder their girlfriend and they're like, I didn't think he was serious.
Yes, 100%. That's exactly what I was thinking as well. Like this guy's actually like, "I'm going to step in. I'm going to do something about it." You can't say things like that. The next day, Potter actually goes to his friend, apologizes, and says he can't control himself. And on June 5th, 1969, he goes with his friend to Cowell Memorial Hospital at Berkeley to see a psychiatrist, Dr. Stuart Gold. Dr. Gold was available for one on one counseling 2 hours a day. And then he gave the rest of his time for crisis intervention therapy, which worked in situations such as this one. Gold wasn't particularly liked by the other staff because for some reason there was some drama within the departments. But Potter's friend goes in with him and explains the whole mess. He actually goes with Potter to therapy and is like, "This is what's going on."
This friend is an A1 guy.
When Dr. Gold at some point obviously asks the friend to leave to talk to Potter by himself, and Potter tells Dr. Gold that his friend is just trying to steal Tanya, and this is why this is all happening. So, through this initial visit, Dr. Gold diagnoses Potter with paranoid schizophrenia. So, there is definitely some mental illness. He makes this diagnosis based on his inappropriate smiling of telling the story, his clear withdrawal, the exclusion of everything that he's been doing, the history of the situation, his eating disorder, and his loss of sleep.
From what I know too about schizophrenia, like I know that early 20s is usually like a really big onset
Oh, you're
of
right. I didn't even think of
schizophrenia.
that,
Mhm.
which again, so sad. But
Yeah.
he's here, he's getting help. Dr. Gold considers actually hospitalizing him, but then he thinks, you know what, the outpatient program would probably suit him better. And he writes him a prescription for the antipsychotic agents. I don't know if I'm saying these right. Thorazine and Compazine. And he also adds cogentine to counteract the side effects of the muscle spasms associated with the other medication. So he's in therapy, he's getting medicated. Dr. Gold then assigns him to a new regular therapist, Dr. Moore, who actually he starts to see and talk to. Tanya officially leaves for Brazil, and this sends Potter into a spiral. When she actually leaves, he writes her letters. He isn't hearing back. At this time, he actually gets a call from Tanya's brother, Alex, and he helps him out in a situation like he needed a place to stay, got in a big fight with his dad, and you'll never believe it. They end up moving in together.
Oh, oh no.
Yes. He seems to
Also,
make,
this dad is the cause of so much.
yes. And unfortunately, the brother, you live with a dad like that. The brother was kind of harsh and things like that with Tanya as well.
Yeah, and for both Tanya and her brother now, this man, Potter, is their only way out.
Yes. Yes. I didn't even think of that. He even seems to make some weird comments about Tanya to her brother, but her brother is just like, "Stop being so weird, dude." Which, again, I kind of get a little bit as well, just because, we grew up with siblings and like people saying weird stuff. Not like, I don't know. I don't know what the weird things were being said, but he
Mhm.
probably just wants to brush it off. Potter, during this time, tells Dr. Moore that he wasn't feeling well with the medication. And for some reason, I couldn't find Dr. Moore at some point tells him to get off of the medication. Moore is, however, growing more concerned with him. Potter tells Dr. Moore that someone's messing with the tapes and that he's actually moving in with Alex. So Dr. Moore's like super concerned at this point.
As he should be.
Apparently, in mid August, Potter gets a letter from his parents, and they even know, like, they're in India, and they're like, "You need to come home and basically like cure yourself of the disease of Tanya." And This actually fuels him to be done with her because the parents are like, be done with her. Potter tells Moore he's done with her and that he cut off contact with Alex, even though that's a lie. He's still living with her brother. At some point, things take a turn, and his friend goes back to Dr. Moore and tells him that Potter is still talking to Alex, living with Alex, and actually told this friend that he wants to go to San Francisco to buy a gun.
This friend will not quit.
I know.
He, I know obviously something bad happens, but this friend definitely prolonged it.
That's what I think. Like, when I think about the case as a whole, like, it's just tragic on literally every account, from her life to Potter to his friend trying to help. He's in therapy and things still just went super south.
Yeah, and I feel like his friend, I mean, if it were me, I don't know, probably has to carry around some kind of guilt, even though he's gone above and beyond what anybody should do and it wasn't his responsibility. I feel like I would feel some kind of guilt knowing that he was continuously telling me he wanted to kill this girl.
I agree. But you're right. He's doing literally everything that he should be. With this information, Dr. Moore is freaking out a little bit. And he even wonders if he should break the confidentiality agreement and disclose this to the police that Potter plans to hurt Tanya, or if he should continue trying to build this relationship with him because he knows if he goes to the police, that's going to like ruin their patient doctor relationship.
I don't know about in the 60s, but at least now, like it is part of a confidentiality clause with a therapist that if you are going to hurt somebody, they have to tell somebody. And I think that this is probably where this therapist made a mistake.
Lexi, you're so smart because this is where that comes from, this case, which is wild.
No way.
Yes. Spoiler alert. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, exactly. So according to the guideline of the American Medical Association at the time, a physician could not violate the principle of confidentiality unless he was required to do so by law or unless it became necessary in order to protect the welfare of the individual or the community. As most cases, the best indicator of future violence is the indication of past violence. And Potter at this point had no past violence. So Moore allegedly goes to Gold, which was that original doctor. Egos get in the way, and Gold is basically like, you can't do your job. Sometime in August, during a session, Moore tells Potter to give him the gun or he is going to go to the police. And Potter actually storms off and is like, you're against me. And this prompts Moore to call the police immediately. So again, he's doing what he needs to do, I think.
Yeah, this is even more tragic listening to it more because everyone is doing what they should be doing.
It's insane. Like, this is why I'm like, I know I heard this before, but I did not realize the impact and the tragedy, the pure tragedy of this case. Two officers from the campus police come and they interview Moore. And Moore states that it is in his professional opinion that he needs to be committed or Tanya will be in danger. The police request this in writing and Moore signs it, but then he has to go ask Gold to sign it because they need a medical doctor. And actually, though, with unease, Gold signs the letter. Moore drops the letter off and it read this: Dear Chief Beale, Mr. Potter was the first seen at Cowell Hospital by Dr. Stuart Gold, June 5th, 1969, on an emergency basis. After receiving medication, he was referred to the outpatient psychiatric clinic for psychotherapy. Since then, I have seen him here 7 times. His mental status varies considerably. At times, he appears to be quiet and rational. At other times, he appears to be quite psychotic. It is my impression that currently the appropriate diagnosis for him is paranoid schizophrenic, reaction, acute, and severe. He is at this point a danger to the welfare of other people and himself. That is, he has been threatening to kill an unarmed girl who he feels has betrayed him and has violated his honor. He has told a friend of his that he intends to go to San Francisco to buy a gun and that he plans to kill the girl. He has been somewhat more cryptic with me, but has alluded strongly to the compulsion to quote unquote get even with and quote unquote hurt the girl. I have discussed this matter with Dr. Gold.
I'm sorry. Killing somebody is not getting even with them.
Agreed. And like, what has she done at this point?
Yeah, not that there's anything to get even with, but Anyways, continue. Sorry.
I've discussed this matter with Dr. Gold, and we concur in the opinion that Mr. Potter should be committed for observation in a mental hospital. I request the assistance of your department in this matter. Sincerely, Lawrence Moore, PhD. So he does the letter. After the letter is dropped off, the officers go to him at work, Potter, and he tells the police he was just play acting.
Please, please tell me the police don't believe this.
And he decides to go with the officers to the station. Unknown to Potter, the police did question that really good friend earlier that day, and the good friend told them everything. Even with the letter and his friend confirming everything in the letter, the three officers talk and say they have no reason to be concerned that the girl, who, let me remind you real quick, isn't even home yet, is afraid. They have no reason to think she's afraid. She's in Brazil.
I just, this is where the ball has dropped. These are the people who did the wrong thing.
Yeah, it's absolutely bonkers.
And they have to live with that for the rest of their lives
Yes,
because they had it in writing that this was not a safe situation. And the thing that makes me mad is in this letter, the doctor said sometimes he can't be rational. And
yes.
it seems like he happened to be rational on the day these police officers picked him up. And
I I'm also
instead
going to cut in though. Is it rational to play act with your therapist and friends that you are going to kill somebody?
no. But it seems like he wasn't in like a frantic state.
Oh, yes, yes.
So it seems like instead of reading and saying, oh, sometimes he does have these more lucid moments, we still need to do our jobs. They said, well, he'll be fine.
He's fine, which again happens even today, especially with people who like trying to get protection orders or trying to get away from abusive people or spouses. Like police, there, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what
Yes.
to do, but there needs to be something.
Unfortunately, if you are someone, and I'm going to say that it probably mostly happens to women, but I also know that it happens in same-sex relationships as well.
Yes.
But if you are someone who is being threatened, they don't do much until you actually get hurt. And by then it's too late.
Exactly. And we see this at this point. He had no prior violence. And unfortunately, in a tragic, it's just way too late. So Moore's boss was actually on vacation, Dr. Paulson. And when he returns from vacation, he actually gets extremely mad at Moore for breaching that confidentiality. And
Oh,
he actually tells him to destroy the letter and he puts Moore on probation.
are you kidding me?
No.
Another person who has failed their job.
Yep. Yep. It's just in freaking insane. In September, Tanya it flies home. Summer is over. And she is clearly very upset to find out that her brother is living with Potter. While in Brazil, positive for Tanya, she actually met a guy. She's very happy. She's allegedly telling people that they're going to be together. So she met a guy and they kind of like started a fling. Things seem to escalate even more upon her return. Tanya ends up sharing some concerns with her mom that Potter is following her. But again, it's the 60s. He lives with the brother. They live close by the home. So her mom is just like, well, their apartment's so close. That's probably why you keep running into each other. I don't think people knew like of stalking and things like that. Like, especially her mom is naive in this situation.
Yeah. And also, like, her mom is in what sounds like an abusive relationship.
Yeah, it's a very passive person and it's just a
Yeah.
coincidence,
So, like, she's not going to be like a fighter because of how worn down she has been from this dad.
which is also just so tragic. I know I keep saying that. I feel like I'm annoying at this point, but it's true. Tanya, also good news, got into Berkeley and she starts to plan to move in with her close girlfriend because she knows her dad's going to get mad. And her close girlfriend is also starting to really worry for Tanya when it comes to Potter. And so much so, she tells Tanya to go to the police herself. So, another good friend.
Yeah, these friends are awesome.
Yes. Allegedly, around this time, Potter offers a different friend, not this good friend that we love so much, money to try to get Tanya to sleep with him. So basically, he could barge in and save Tanya.
Are you kidding me?
No,
He's paying somebody to rape her.
essentially, but I believe the friend was like, let me think about it. So, like, the friend didn't accept. But yes, allegedly, that's essentially what he was doing.
Oh my God.
Tanya allegedly actually ends up telephoning the I house where Potter lived a week later, and she says she's having problem with one of their students, but they can't meet her until the next week.
I get
Yes.
that. Unless she was like, I think one of your students is gonna kill me. They probably
Yes,
get so many like, I don't want to live with my roommate anymore.
exactly. So on October 27th, Tanya's mom is with her little sister at the ballet class, and Tanya is home alone. Potter goes to their house and basically says he wants to talk to her. She shoves open the door and takes a pellet gun out and shoots her with the pellet gun. As the pellets are hitting her, she launches at him because, of course, you're getting hit with a pellet gun. And he takes out a 13-inch butcher knife and plunges it into her again and again and again.
So he had a 13-inch knife on his person.
Yes, I have chills. She ends up running out her front door, screaming for help. He chases her with the knife, and so sadly, so tragically, she ends up dying on her front lawn.
Oh my
He,
God.
yep, he goes back inside and calls the police, admitting to the crime right away, but saying, I just stabbed my girlfriend.
That's not your girlfriend, bruh.
No, no. I have chills. He opens the door for the officers when they arrive, and just so sadly, her mother and sister walk up to this horrific scene after ballet.
No.
20-year-old Tanya is pronounced dead on the arrival at Herrick Memorial Hospital. The cause of death was shock and hemorrhaging, resulting from most sources said 8, some said more, but 8 major stab wounds to the chest. They also
Oh,
found out that she was 6 weeks pregnant
with Brazil, baby.
with Brazil baby. I
So
know.
he killed two people.
He 110% killed 2 people.
Do we know, maybe you're going to say this later, but do we know if she knew she was pregnant?
In the book I read, it said that she did. However, I know like some things were dramatized. Did not find anything in the article that she did.
Okay.
Prashanjit Potter was arraigned and charged with first-degree murder. He pleaded innocent by reason of insanity.
I knew this fucker was going to do that. I knew it.
I just see the anger building up in you.
You planned this for months and
Oh,
you're going to
yeah.
plead insanity?
Yep. I guess that's where the line is gray because he is schizophrenic, but
He
he
knew
did
what he was
plan.
doing.
Well, he called
Yeah.
the police right away, too. So you're right. He did. He knew it was wrong.
Yeah. And that's what with insanity, isn't it like, was there any premeditation? And
I think you're right.
did you know that did you have any like observable behaviors that showed you knew it was wrong in the moment?
Yeah, that wasn't a
And
right thing to do.
he was talking about it for months, had plans, was told by his psychiatrist that he was a danger to her, and immediately called the police after.
Yep. On August 26, 1970, he was found guilty of second-degree murder, which is murder without premeditation.
There
How
was premeditation,
there was,
but
and I
at least he was guilty.
yes, and I didn't look this up, and I should have, but I thought I did hear that like for a very long time, first-degree murder was only reserved for like cops. So
Yes.
that
That
could
was
have been
just
it.
on that was just on an episode of Morbid, I think.
That's probably exactly where I got it from. He was sentenced to, wait for it, 5 years to life
Okay.
in the
I'm
California
I'm gonna pretend he's getting life for now.
medical facility in Vassaville, and I don't or Vacaville. I did not look up that pronunciation, so I'm sorry if you're from there and I said it wrong. This is just going to send you into a tizzy. Potter appealed it, as they always do.
Yeah.
And 4 years later, the California Supreme Court overturned his conviction
What?
on the grounds that the trial judge had not given adequate instructions to the jury on the meaning of diminished capacity.
So like literal someone worded something wrong and he gets off.
Well, a new trial was ordered,
Okay.
and the trial judge agreed to a quote unquote compromise,
A compromise.
which wait till you hear the compromise. Potter is released in return for his deportation to India.
So he can go kill an Indian woman?
Well, he returns to Calcutta, and his father arranges a marriage for him. This poor woman. 2 years later, he gets a scholarship to study his naval architecture in Hanover, Germany, where he
Stop it right now.
where he lives with his wife and daughter.
No.
Yes, is that not the most crack-a-poo you've ever heard in your life?
Okay, first off, I just looked up a picture of this man and he's not a looker.
The bad thing about
Um,
the podcast is they can't see your face because it's gold.
um, but also, okay, so like, I'm sorry, did you just stop having schizophrenia?
That's actually a great point. Is he still going to therapy? Did he get on
Yeah,
his
like,
medication?
is he being treated or like, was this not schizophrenia?
Also imagine, and going back to Indian matchmaker, like arranged marriages in India, and I'm sure at the time are like is like a very sacred thing, right?
Mhm.
Imagine you are into this and like ready to be arranged marriage, and it's him. That's who your husband is.
No,
Won't even
no,
imagine. No, I just think I feel bad for her. I hope he's good to her. I hope he's in therapy still. I don't even know. I can't even believe he's going to school, studying his naval architecture, has a wife and a kid, and living his life when he killed a young girl and a baby.
just to go and have a daughter too. I like that's terrifying that he has a daughter.
It's disgusting. Dr. Harvey Powelson, the guy who was like, destroy this, he got a lot of heat, obviously, for trying to destroy evidence and not being helpful. And he fires like 9 people, including more, because he's like freaking out, I guess, and thinks firing
Oh
people is important.
my God. Like you messed up, nobody else.
In September of 1972, he ends up resigning, but he makes a point to say it has nothing to do with what happened.
Sure, man. Sure. Sure, sure, sure.
In 1970, the Tarasoff family files a wrongful death suit against the regents of the University of California and the city of Berkeley for failing to warn them that Potter had threatened the life of their daughter. It was surprisingly initially dismissed, but they appealed it. And in 1974, it reached the Supreme Court, and it becomes one of the most controversial decisions in history. Actually, it's like super debated when I was researching this because they altered exactly what you smarty farty said. They altered the time honored rule of doctor patient confidentiality by holding that if a psychotherapist has reason to believe that his patient may inflict harm, the therapist has a legal duty to warn the intended victim, friends, relatives, or the authorities.
That's great. That's so
Yes,
great. I mean, not that anyone should have to die for that to be the case, but at least
there's a little bit of gold.
something came out of this
Yep.
that will hopefully help protect other Tatianas in the future.
100%. This only applied in California at the time, but now I believe, if I did my research correctly, 23 other states obey this rule as well.
Okay, we need to get all the states on this.
I don't know why not. And I don't know why it's so controversial because to me, I'm like, that people should be warned if people are threatening their lives, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yes.
In 1976, her parents are actually rewarded an undisclosed amount of money. And unfortunately, not much is else is known about her family. I tried looking into them, I couldn't find anything else. But according to BetterHelp, the Tarasoff case ruling has impacted how U.S. therapists deliver mental health treatment. It emphasizes an opportunity for early detection and intervention, collaborative efforts between mental health professionals and community partners, and tailored programs to support those affected by mental illness. So, like you were saying, as tragic as this is, there it was a little bit of light, if you call it that, that came out of this. And that's my case. That is the insane case of Tatiana Tarasoff.
Oh my gosh. Like you said, it's just tragic on so many levels.
I just felt like when I was researching it, everything I was reading, like, oh, like how great he did all this and went to school. Oh my gosh, her poor life, but she's, going to school still and she's figuring out life. And oh, he figures out he has mental health issues. That's great at the time. Oh, now he's off his medication. Oh, you know what I mean? It's just like blow after blow of system failure that I believe is the cause of her death.
Yes, because so many people did the right thing up until the police didn't.
And I feel like so often, we are true crime girlies. It's like, oh, they didn't tell anybody. Oh, the friend, like you said, the friend said, I'm going to kill her and I'm not telling anybody. But in this case, they did. They showed
Yeah.
up.
And like kudos to that psychiatrist. Was it more that ended up telling?
More, yes.
Yeah, because obviously, like it's still a controversial thing, but even more so back then. But for him to put her life before his relationship with his client
And his job, because
is,
he ends up getting
yeah,
fired.
yeah, is amazing. And then the police and that lead psychiatrist really, really, really failed the system.
Yes. And I think it's important to note too that I believe it was the campus police, which was part of the problem because it should have been like the city police,
The
but
police.
yeah, but you're working at a college. So like there just was miscommunication and not, it just wasn't good. And it's just sad and tragic. And two lives were lost. And a turd bucket gets to continue living his life, going to school, getting an education, having a wife and kid.
I'm just like so curious as if he's treated or if this was just like a psychotic break that like ended
Oh,
after this.
that's something
Which is
interesting.
then, I mean, just as scary as him having schizophrenia, but I feel like the only way he could be living the life he's living now is to either have been treated for schizophrenia or not having schizophrenia.
Yeah, hopefully. I guess hopefully he's just medicated in therapy because if it was a psychotic break, what happens when it happens again? If you're under stress, that
Exactly.
happens. And hopefully he's
Yeah.
just good to his wife and his daughter. And I'm so angry that he's just chilling. He should be in jail.
Yeah. He's living the life that she should have. She should have
1000%. Had the
been
daughter.
able, yeah, she should have been able to have a child. She should have been able to go to college to pursue her dreams. She should be married and happy. Um, and instead, a killer is getting those privileges.
It's disgusting.
And one of the only reasons he probably hasn't hurt his current wife is because she was forced to be with him.
100%.
Like
And that's is he
he
hurting
didn't,
her? He could be.
yeah, but like it seems like that rejection is really what set him off. In an arranged
True.
marriage, you can't reject that.
Oh, so true. I didn't even think of that. Ugh. But yeah, that's the
Well,
case.
let's maybe end on a little bit of a higher note. Do you want to talk about what we're reading right now, real fast?
I am only two chapters in, but we are reading the book Into the Peaks by, do you know who it's by? Do you have it by with you?
Let me look it up real fast because I want to make sure we give credit.
It is a
It,
thriller.
it is by Ryan Lil Washington.
I got it from an Instagram reel because I'm not cool enough to be on the TikTok yet.
Yes, but I'm only a quarter of the way through, maybe a little bit more. So we will update you guys. But if you want to read along in our book club, that was our book club of the
Yes.
month. So grab it. I also want to just say thank you so much for listening and giving us girlies a chance to do this, to stay connected and have some fun.
Just going to say, especially if you're not in our family, because I'm probably just going to be our family.
Yeah, if you are not related to us, an extra special thank you for listening. Also, go ahead and give us a follow on Instagram at Bloodshed Baddies. And if you have a case suggestion or want to send in a story or just want to talk to us, you can send us an email at bloodshedbaddies@gmail.com.
You should also give us a very nice review because that would be awesome. And we do want to point out that the incredible intro music was made by our amazing cousin Vinny. And he's actually an incredible artist who puts out music. And his music name is Cousin Vinny, Vinnie. Give him a listen for sure. Tell a friend, please. We want to be able to have fun and do this every week. And tune in next week for Alexa's episode 2. I'm so excited.
Yay!
Woo, we did it, Lex.
We did it. We'll see you next time.
See ya. Love you guys. Bye.
Bye.